So you guys can just start up when
Okay.
people come in and just do your thing.
All right, thank you.
Okay?
It's been very frustrating. Hi, Jeff.
Hello, hello.
Hi. So that's just
This is Jessica?
This is Jessica. This
Joe
is
Romano, how are you?
Romano.
You teach together?
We used
did,
to.
yeah. But now I teach teachers.
Where's that?
At the, I work for the state support team. It's through the ESC, Cuyahoga County
Oh.
Educational Service Center.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Terrific.
Yeah.
Terrific. I'm gonna take a back row seat and pay attention.
Okay.
she wants, the way she wants her to go is that the kids have any choice they want. The kids can have any choice they want. They can choose any book they want. And then the way you assess it is you just talk about it. Come on. So you just talk about it.
Hi.
Why now?
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
Fine, thanks. How are you?
I was really good until 2 seconds ago. My computer decided to shut down. Okay. Yay.
I use these journals and get to take a picture of this?
Sure.
This is awesome. So in these.
Okay. Oh, I didn't know about that.
Yeah. Join on in. No. Oh, that was a very difficult format. Oh my gosh. Hi, it's good to see you.
It is a lot shorter, yes. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm so excited. Ellie says, sure, you can do this.
Oh, absolutely. You can do this with kindergarten. excited.
Yes. So excited. Just making sure now. I think we have a few more people coming.
It was really a late,
I know, I heard people clap after the bell. I loved your presentation.
Oh,
It was
thank you.
fascinating.
Join us as we work on the voyage. We're
Yes.
sending students and teachers all over the world.
It's amazing.
There's something that's starting for everyone.
There really is, which is so wonderful. I mean, it's really learning across the curriculum.
About like just like regaining the lost skills. I love that.
Yes.
That really drew me.
Yes, I mean, because we've lost so much of that connection to people, to nature, to all of those things that make us human. So, and that was fascinating. Right. Yes. Well, and I love that you went and found a navigation expert. How amazing.
We should like connect Laura with.
Yes. I know, I have a friend of mine, works on a sea vessel and travels all over the world. I mean, it looks like a pirate ship.
Reason for Facebook is that I get to
Yes,
keep
it's
up
the only
with
way I can
her.
keep up with her. I know, because she doesn't have a phone anymore, so it's the only way I can really keep up with her. But it's amazing to see all the places they travel and then do little bits of education wherever they are. So it was really fascinating.
Oh, great.
So where all have you been? So you were in Cape Town.
So, yeah, so.
The Ring of Fire.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we're really lucky that our headmaster is on board and really wants to existing schools and the other teachers. We've sent teachers to send students to Samoa and New Zealand, Australia, Cape Town, our next team is going to go to DC, UK, Boston. Yeah, so at the same time, I believe Panama and Costa Rica.
So are you gonna go down and around, or are you gonna come through the canal?
Through the canal.
Okay, yeah. Because it's pretty dangerous to go down around the southern tip of South America, right?
And the canal, we have to stay there for a month.
Oh, right.
Oh.
That's right, I forgot.
I get a number.
Oh,
Yeah.
Black market trading to get across the Panama Canal. We can probably go ahead and get started. I think people can kind of trickle in. So, yes. Do you want me to start? Sure. Okay, so we welcome all of you. My name is Kelly Fishman. I'm a high school English teacher at Solon High School. This is my co-presenter.
I'm Jessica Tresco. I was a high school English teacher at Solon High School, which is where we met. But 3 years ago, I left to go work for the Educational Service Center of Cuyahoga County, and so I work with districts all over Cuyahoga County, building infrastructure, writing curriculum with their administrative teams. Okay, so you are here to learn about SOL today. We have some intended outcomes by the time you leave us in the next hour. For specifically, being able to explain SOL and what it is, teach your colleagues about SOL, that's the whole point, is to spread this concept and idea, define universal design for learning, as well as synthesize how UDL and SOL are very much so connected with one another. Okay. Is anyone familiar with SOL at all? Do you have any background to it? No. Well, this is very exciting. Very, very exciting. SOL stands for Self-Organized Learning Environment. Jeff McClellan was the principal at MC Squared in Cleveland. And you know MC Squared, Cleveland gets lots of press all the time, all the way up to the President of the United States, MC Squared. being a STEM school. Sugata Mitra won the $1 Million TED Talk Prize for this concept. It came here, so Sugata Mitra started this in India. The concept through TED Talks, as I'm sure you're all familiar with, came here. And they asked Jeff McClellan to head up this $1.5 million grant through the Jacobs Foundation for 3 years in the greater Cleveland municipal area. So it's not like a Cleveland Municipal School District, it is a Cleveland, Ohio area grant and project. Okay, so it lasts 3 years, and we are in about, I think, right around the 2-year mark, 1.5 to 2 years that it's been here and being disseminated. So I'm going to let the first video sort of speak for itself and give you a little more information about what it is and how it looks, and then we are going to get into it.
What is the future of learning, and how have we come to where we are today? If you look at present-day schooling, it's quite easy to trace its origins. It was the byproduct of one of the largest and last empires on this planet. Go back 300 years and try to imagine a planet without computers, without telephones, without the internet. It's the start of the Industrial Revolution, and we needed lots and lots of identical people. They needed to know 3 things: how to read, write, and do arithmetic. The machines used to produce these people was our present-day schools. It was a machine engineered by the Victorians that was so robust it still runs today. Only it's producing identical people for a system that no longer exists. The empire has long since disappeared. But how about the education system it left behind? It's the system still used by today's children. Children who are absorbed with their mobile phones, but who are reluctantly going to school and picking up their books. Now that we are seconds away from a Google search, what role does remembering actually play? Could it be that we are heading towards a future where remembering stuff is obsolete? Some might think this is terrible. Or is it? Before the internet, there was great value put in knowing and remembering. Yet, this is actually the lowest level of learning. As Benjamin Bloom so eloquently framed it, remembering stuff falls at the bottom of the learning list. Today, it is more critical to know how to find answers than it is to remember them. So, what does this all mean? It means we are free to focus our educational process on high-order skills, such as evaluation and creation. It means we can take time that was once allotted for memorization and translate it into potential that has, till now, gone untapped. Few debate this point, yet today's education is often challenged to evolve and adapt. It goes against the fundamentals of the Victorian system. We are now learning the value of educational systems that self-organize. Instead of teaching, we've learned that in allowing the educational process to self-organize, learning emerges. This process is called SOUL, which stands for Self-Organized Learning Environment. SOUL is not about teaching, but rather letting learning happen. In a SOUL, the role of the teacher is to set a process in motion and stand back in awe as learning occurs naturally. And best of all, it's easy to do. The outcome is children have developed acute critical thinking skills, problem-solving capabilities, and the ability to communicate, all critical to success in school and in the world they're going to face afterwards. SOUL does not require an overhaul of our current school structure. It is applicable to any educational environment where there is a group of learners, access to the internet, and caring facilitators. To learn how to create your own SOUL, watch the SOUL how-to video and let learning happen.
Okay. Makes a lot of sense, right? So this is how it would look in the classroom, to give you a flavor of this. This is Sugata Mitra, and he's going to a school that he has never been to before, working with students he has never seen or worked with, and he doesn't have the question posed. So just to set the stage for what you're going to see, SOUL is based on asking a question that the students have to figure out how to answer. The question sometimes has a very clear answer, and sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it's unanswerable, but the process of learning is the point. It needs to be something that really promotes and provokes critical thinking. And then you allow the students to organize themselves to facilitate their own learning. So you'll see how that works, and we'll talk a little bit more about the logistics of it all after we see what it looks like in the classroom. Anything you want to add?
We are hoping the student are here today, and I'm going to actually run the SOL. I haven't yet decided what the question is going to be, and I don't quite know who the children are. The children have never done a SOL before, so we are fully unprepared. You make your own groups, you can change your groups, you can walk around, you can look at other people's work. It's anything but a classroom, right? Instead of somebody teaching something, is it possible for me to take something that I cannot teach and ask you if you can learn it by yourself? You see what I mean? It kind of is the opposite of teaching. Once you introduce the concept of the soul, then you have to raise a question. Generally in the form of, I wonder why, or I wonder what. You've all seen a tear drop, right? So my question is, why are those drops pointy at the top and roundish at the bottom? The real answer will involve two concepts, gravity and surface tension, way above any of the others.
It was a very hard question, very scientific, and it was a very strange question as well. So it was that's what made it even more fun.
It's really hard to describe how the question arrives in your own mind, but I take the topic that I'm supposed to teach and ask myself why that topic is there in the first place. This is more or less what a 5-year-old does actually with their parents. They keep asking why, until you hit almost a metaphysical point. So for example, how do you measure amount? Now that's a much better question than how does trigonometry work?
So when we take this into the classroom, the way this looks, because I've done this year, so to give you some kind of real world, how am I going to do this in my own classroom ideas, I try to think of questions that work at the top of Bloom's taxonomy. So I want my students to create the answer. I don't want to stand there and give them the answer, because that's what we've told them is how education looks. So they're very used to having a teacher stand at the front of the classroom and say, get out your notebook and I want you to write down every single thing I say. And then you're going to memorize it and you're going to give it back to me on a test. Instead, the way I started my year this year with my juniors, for instance, they read To Kill a Mockingbird over the summer. So when they came into school, and this is the second or third day of school this year, on my front board, I had written, what does it mean to be an African-American male in society? And they had to answer that question. So what does that mean? What does it mean in the context of To Kill a Mockingbird? What does it mean in 2016? Have the conversation, because some students heard others saying, well, everybody's equal now. So it's not like with Tom Robinson in To Kill a Mockingbird, everyone's equal now. And other students were saying, well, no, everybody is not equal right now. And so having them work through that, having access to technology and students of diverse backgrounds, because it's very different to be an African American male in that classroom versus a white female in that classroom. So what does that look like and what does it mean to you? I didn't give them a time frame. So then they worked through, well, what does that mean in 1800s America? What does it mean in 1950s America? What does it mean in 2016? So we have an African American president, everything's equal, right? And they had to really work through that, and it forced them to interact with one another And when you start a class like that and your students walk in, they're not really quite sure what to do with it at first because they're very used to that Victorian machine of walking in and you give them the information, and as my second point says, they passively expect the answers. They are not actively engaged in the curriculum. And I think so many teachers see themselves as the experts, the curriculum experts. I'm here to share all of my knowledge with you. But I have learned so much from my students using the SOUL model because so often they come up with questions and they come up with answers to those questions that maybe I hadn't thought of. Because think about how long you've been teaching whatever it is that you teach. And all of a sudden you have these young minds that come in and think about it in a whole new way and have answers to the questions that you're presenting that maybe you never thought of before. So not only are they working at that higher level of Bloom's, but they're also actively engaged in the curriculum. Students work together to evaluate that information and then they can create a final product that speaks to their specific learning style. So as you know, we have students that have a lot of different ways that they learn. So you're going to have students that want to talk through the problem. You have students that want to get online and start with Google and see what they can find out. You have students, I still have students that are passionately dedicated to their hard copy paper and pen. That is how they want to interact with information. And so it gives them an opportunity to then present that information in the way that works for them. So instead of saying, everyone has to create a PowerPoint and it has to have 10 slides and all of the slides need to look like this, it allows students to make a video, make a PowerPoint, do a poster, make a little play. And so I've had students say, well, can we do like a skit? As long as you're getting the information across, you can present it however you want. And so it allows students to build on their own skills and their own strengths because that's what we want them to be able to do. And so we have to really break away from the way we think about assessment. And as a teacher in a public school, that can be a little tricky because so much of our assessment has to look exactly the same. So helping guide that process is going to be tricky, but not all students learn in the same way and not all students can show you what they know in the same way. And I think we're seeing that at colleges and universities now because they're saying, well, wait, not standardized tests don't tell us everything. Students learn in a lot of different ways. And this is allowing my students to build a portfolio of knowledge where they can take these really amazing presentations that they've created, and maybe it's a poster or maybe it's a PowerPoint or a video, and they're creating these portfolios of information that they can then share at college visits as part of their resume. It allows students to meet multiple standards simultaneously. So for those of you who are in a very Common Core driven public school as I am, you can say, look at all of these Common Core standards I'm meeting. They're doing speaking and listening, they're writing, they're evaluating information. So they're reading informational texts and fictional texts. So you're doing a lot of the things that you need to be doing all at once. And then it's a great way for teachers to address differentiation, IEP goals, and the multiple state standards. I do co-teach 2 of my classes with an interventionist. So a lot of times it gives us an opportunity to maybe intentionally group ahead of time and then give a different type of question or a different level of question to different groups. So they're all exploring the same type of information, but you're allowing them to do it in a slightly different way. So the differentiation almost comes naturally. And it allows you to meet a lot of those IEP goals that we need to meet as well.
So let's talk about a couple of the logistical type items. How would you do this? And you all are going to do this pretty much by the time I start talking. So with your students, and this is where there are a couple hard and fast rules about how to implement this process, and then other pieces, and Kelly can speak more to this, are going to be adjustable, variable. This works kindergarten through adults. So I do nothing but teach and present in front of adults at this point. Audiences this size up to 450 people, and I use this process. So a couple of things. The students organize themselves into their own groups. Now, like Kelly said, there are going to be certain times and instances where you might have to step into that a little bit if you have certain individual students, but it would be something that would sort of fly under the radar, because mostly you want to give them the choice. And you'll see that they're not, if you caught it, I know it was very quick, they don't have to stay in the same groups. Literally, you are learning from each other as the entire class. You're allowed to walk over to another group and say, we're stuck on this. Did you get it? How are you guys doing this? It's about that collective learning from each other. You want them working with at least one other person. Generally, it works best if there's one technological device per group. And you can limit the max number of students in a group. You don't want it to be this enormous group. Somewhere groups 2 to 5 is usually best, where you can give a couple parameters like that. If there's one technological device, then the students truly have to collaborate. If everyone is just sitting on his or her device, looking it up, there's not a whole lot of talking and working it out with each other. You want to give, and this depends on the actual amount of time you have in class. Some people have block schedules, some people have 50-minute class periods. This is where you need to adjust based on your classroom environment and how that works. But it's usually about a 25 to 30-minute time period to work. So you present the question and then say, go, figure it out, answer it. You have 25 to 30 minutes. Within that 25 to 30 minutes, the students have to come up with an answer to the question and figure out how they are going to deliver and present that information to their classmates. There is a presentation at the end. It doesn't matter how they present it. I've seen some really creative, incredible things. Like Kelly said, we don't all want to give a PowerPoint. Some of us are really talented singers or dancers or want to put together skits or writers. However that looks, give them the freedom to create, okay? And then the presentations usually are anywhere between 3 and 5 minutes, bless you, per group. So here are the actual like hard and fast rules about this that you don't back away from. Like Kelly said, there are multiple standards being hit at once. Some of them being those embedded content literacy standards or ELA standards, so the ones around reading, writing, speaking, and listening. They're all embedded. The students have to cite their evidence. They are researching. They have to cite their evidence. What a great way for you to see what they know about credibility of sources. What a great entry point to talk about how do we know what to believe, and for them to see other groups with information and do some of that assessment themselves. So that's rule number 1, hard and fast. They have to cite the information that they get. They also have to present. There has to be that accountability at the end, showing you what they know and are able to do. You can make your own rule. I usually do, especially with adults, say you all have to be part of the presentation. It's not like you send one person out of the group up and everybody else sits. Not it, especially when we're working on speaking and listening standards, everyone in the group needs to be a part of that, that presentation at the end. And then the rest is really sort of up to you and how it goes, and meet the time frames as it works best for your classroom. Anything else you want to add?
So we are going to give you a question to work on, because what better way to really embrace soul than try it yourselves. But if you are a little nervous about coming up with your own questions, the Soul Cleveland website has a ton of questions by grade level and by standard, by subject. So if you wanted to try it out in your classroom and see how it works, there are questions that are already created, and once you get a little more comfortable with it, then you can actually create your own questions based on what's going on in your classroom at the time.
And we'll show you, yeah, we'll show you the website at the end here so that you can see it. It's free. Jeff McClellan, the one who is in charge of the grant, he is also a free resource. The Jacobs Foundation, like I said, gave him the money so that he is totally willing to come to your schools and offer professional development about SOL and work with teachers on doing it. Okay, so just a side note. But we are going to have you do this process. Okay, so your SOL question is, two-part, how many and in what ways does SOL incorporate universal design for learning? How many of you are familiar with UDL? A couple of people? Okay, so this is good too. Universal design for learning is one of the best concepts that I've heard in education in a really long time. So this is your question. We have to adjust because of our time frame here, so do you want to go like 12 minutes?
Yeah,
To
so
work?
about 12 minutes.
And then we're going to have you give very short presentations. We're probably going to cap it at 2 to 3 minutes so that we can give you time to either ask questions, take a look at the website, but just to give you a flavor of how this works. All right, so we're going to go 12 minutes. Organize yourselves. You can walk around, talk to each other, some sort of groups to answer this question, and then at the end of 12 minutes, you are going to give us a short 2 to 3 minute presentation on what you learned about this. Any questions? And you have to cite your evidence. Do you, does everybody at least have like a mobile device, a phone, or a laptop that you can share? Just one per however you organize yourselves in your groups. All right, go to 12 minutes, and you can get started.
Oh, you have one of those too?
Yeah, this one.
Have you heard of universal design? No, I have not.
Yeah.
Don't understand. Have you done school?
No, I haven't. I mean, you know what? Strangely enough, I think I have done school before the school.
Okay.
Does that sound good?
We did a project recently.